Hello and good morning. So the anticipation for another stimulus check has just been building and building and building as the blocks are just kind of going into place to make the odds of this more and more likely. So we have a lot to cover today. Also, sorry if I look a little bit disheveled. I just got done with my morning workout and I just needed to jump right into it and get into the news. My cat is still sleeping behind me. So, so it's a little chaotic right now. But for today, we're going to talk about the most recent updates on the $600 stimulus check, the potential coming $2,000 stimulus check. We're going to talk about the possible size of this next check and if it'll come. Is it going to be $1,400? Is it going to be $2,000? We're going to talk about how fast this might happen. What is the very quickest possible timeline? What is a little bit more of a realistic timeline? We're going to cover that. And then we're going to also cover what stands in the way of this stimulus check from happening where we sit right now. These things have kind of changed even from last week. So there's a lot to cover right now. It's been 2 weeks since people started receiving the first $600 stimulus checks for themselves and $600 for dependents. And the IRS is saying 2/3 of these people received direct deposits with no problem so far. So 66% of people have received direct deposits, the IRS is saying, and they're saying 80% of the total amount of payments. I think there's about 160 million or so people who receive these stimulus payments. 80% have received their payment or the payment is on the way in the mail right now. I know a lot of people, when they check the Get My Payment tool, it says it's being mailed. Not sure how reliable that tool actually is because the notices kind of change. I mean, last week we saw the error number 2 notice where it was saying you'd have to file your taxes in order to get the check. And then like 2 days later, people were receiving the payments by direct deposit. So I wouldn't guarantee it if it says you're getting it mailed that you're going to get it mailed. You still might get direct deposit, but if it says it's getting mailed, typically I'm seeing that it says the date in which it was mailed. So then you can kind of do the math and estimate when you might receive it. You know, if it was mailed on the 8th of January, you can probably expect sometime 14th, 15th, something like that in order to receive that in the mail. And where we sit right now, the IRS has 4 more days to get the remaining 20 or so percent of all payments out before they hit their deadline. And then as we know, if they hit that January 15th deadline, then everyone after that has to file their taxes in order to receive this payment. Then you have to go through the whole process of, filing your taxes as soon as possible and then receiving your refund. I did a little bit of research and on an average year, we don't know if this is really an average expected year, but it usually takes 21 days to get your tax refund. So if you were to get your W-2s back or whatever documents you need to file your taxes, you can expect after you file it about 21 days to get that refund as long as there aren't any major issues on your taxes. Also, the IRS is saying that there are many more debit cards coming out this time. There's 8 million debit cards being sent out. I'll have more information on this later because they can be a little bit confusing to get them set up and there's going to be a lot more people receiving these. So check your mail and make sure you're keeping an eye out for these. I know I'm really bad about throwing away junk mail, so I sympathize for the people who threw it away the first time and had to go through the process of getting another one. I know some people are like, that's ridiculous. Why would you throw away mail? It's like, well, you get a bunch of junk mail. It all looks the same. How often do you actually get important mail? I know I hardly ever do. I just throw stuff away, but we got to be real careful not to throw away our stimulus checks. Also, I would like to thank the sponsor of this video, Society Socks. They're a fan of my content and they reached out to me just a few weeks ago and said that they wanted to sponsor a video of mine. So I agreed and they went ahead and sent me some of their products. I am blown away so far. I've been wearing these things every single day. The designs, the quality, it's awesome. Even my girlfriend has been trying to steal my rocket ship socks because she likes them so much. So please support me by supporting Society Socks. Use the link in my description and promo code Maher for $10 off any new subscription or any purchase over $20. Then moving on, I know I get this question a lot. People who receive Social Security benefits who haven't received the payment yet, they're like, hey, what's going on here? Am I receiving the payment? Do I have to wait for taxes? Well, as of yesterday, the IRS is still saying no matter how you receive your normal Social Security benefits, that's how you can expect to receive your stimulus payment. If you receive them electronically, expect that stimulus payment electronically. Hopefully you already received them. If that's the case, if you receive a mailed payment, then expect to receive the stimulus check mailed as well. But we're seeing a lot more people getting mailed payments. So It wouldn't be too big of a leap to expect someone who receives direct deposit Social Security payments to receive a paper check. I wouldn't be super surprised if that happened with how chaotic this has all been. Now, moving on, will there be another stimulus check? This is the question on everyone's mind. And of course, we don't have a firm answer, but we can put all the details together and kind of build the best picture we possibly can. Biden has said and is saying over and over again that if Georgia wins the runoff elections, if they get the majority in the Senate, or at least a 50-50 split, expect another round of stimulus payments. He said this again and again, and Bernie Sanders has reached out to him multiple times on Twitter and said, we need to keep our promises here. You said this is going to happen. Let's make sure that this actually happens. So the odds there are definitely to getting, leading more towards the increased stimulus payment size, whether you want to call it the third check or an increased check, whatever you want to call it. He's saying payments would go out immediately if those results are certified in Georgia. But how quick is immediate? I mean, this is Congress after all. Is immediate 3 months from now, or is that today? So there's a few things to consider here. First, if those election results are certified Democratic winners, there still is a very slim margin in the Senate. Where it sits, every single Democratic and moderate and independent senator would have to vote for those stimulus checks in order for it to get passed. And it still might even need a tiebreaker with Kamala Harris breaking the tie. And this might be an issue because there's one senator, Joe Manchin. He is Democratic, but probably the most moderate Democratic senator. He isn't a huge fan of the $2,000 stimulus checks. First, he was saying he's against them, but then he kind of corrected it and said he's not necessarily against it. He just wants this to be much more targeted, which is something that we've heard again and again, that certain people want these payments more targeted so that they can ensure that it's going to people who are in need and not just people who have a bunch of money already in their bank account. But we've talked about this before, where how do you determine who's in need and who's not? Basing this off of income, you get an okay idea, but it's impossible to tell. Someone who earns $60,000 in a year might be more in need than someone who earns $20,000 a year. We can't tell from an outside perspective, so it's tough. He says that he wants it more targeted, or he wants more spent on infrastructure. If we're going to spend $2 to $3 trillion, he wants to spend on infrastructure, which, is fine. That gives jobs, that puts money into the economy. But looking at research, that's actually one of the most poor ways to stimulate the economy because it takes a lot of time to get that money out there. The research says, through economists, that stimulus payments, food assistance benefits increase, like increasing SNAP benefits, and unemployment are the best way to stimulate the economy. Those are kind of the big three. Infrastructure is actually one of the lower tiers for actually stimulating the economy. I'm sure everything helps, but we want it to have the maximum amount of benefit for each dollar we spend. So that's important. Now back to the timeline. Biden and Harris are sworn in on January 20th. So there's still, a 9-day runway there where nothing really is going to happen as far as the $2,000 checks or an increased check of any size. And then the Georgia senators, the Georgia runoff results have until the 22nd to be certified. So we can expect that to take the entire time. So they won't be sworn in until at least January 22nd, which, just putting that together, we can expect the very soonest that a stimulus package could happen to be early February. Now, I don't know how realistic that would be because that's them getting into place and making this legislation happen like that, no hitches. And if we know we've been following this for a while, there's always hitches and negotiations and back and forth. I would be surprised if that happened. It's possible, it's the very earliest, but I'd personally be surprised. Analysts are saying that they are expecting a $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion package to happen sometime in March, which that seems more realistic to me. They're talking between 2 and 3 trillion right now, and they're saying in February at the earliest. I think it's a good idea to just cut that in half for the package size and double it for the timeline, and that seems like a more realistic scenario. Now, can these increased checks even fit into that smaller package size? No pun intended. So for the $2,000 checks, we really don't know right now. Does that mean we're going to get a $2,000 check on top of $600, or are we getting $1,400 to make the difference to $2,000? There's not really anything firm here. We know it's probably not going to be smaller than $1,400 and probably not bigger than $2,000 unless we get some wild numbers, just for negotiation's sake. But for what actually happens, we don't have the actual number yet. For the $2,000 checks to go out to everyone who received stimulus payments the first time and second time, it would cost about $320 billion. For the $1,400 difference stimulus checks, it would cost about $224 billion. So either of those sizes would fit into a $1 to $1.5 trillion stimulus package just fine. But then we know there's all sorts of spending on outside interests and to government agencies that fills up the rest. And I'm sure they would also extend unemployment boost. They might do something more for small businesses. That money goes away very quickly. So I would say if we were to expect something, expect the lower end, the $1,400 just to make the difference. It's better to set the bar low and be pleasantly surprised than set the bar high and be disappointed like we have been time and time again this year. So let's just try not to let that happen. Let's be cautiously optimistic here. So that's all we have for today. If you enjoyed this update, please like and subscribe and share this video. Help me battle the YouTube algorithm. It helps a lot. You have a lot of power there just interacting with the content. I would just like to thank you for watching, and I hope you have a profitable day.